It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Hello there. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, as always, Douglas Coleman. How are you? We've got 2 interviews today and some great music to play. First one up is Rich Hall. Rich is the lead singer for the band Follow No One, and we've got their single Fear No Evil to play. We'll play that as the lead-in to his interview. Follow No One received a Josie Award for Best Rock Act of 2019, which is very exciting. So, very happy to have Rich on the show. He will be followed in the second half of the show by Suzanne Kirlew, a.k.a. Curly Sue. And Suzanne is an author, a TV presenter, and a public speaker, and she's also a vegan. She's written a book called Cooking with Kids, which is a cookbook, a vegan cookbook, that parents can share with their children and share the experience of cooking vegan meals at home. So she will be up in the second half of the show. Before we get to the interviews, we've got our complete radio promotional playlist. We are featuring a track called Vegas by George Hendrickson. And my condolences to George because he just lost his dog. And me being a dog lover, I've got 2 of them. And I know that that's heartbreaking when you lose a family member like that. Our 4-legged family members become part of our family just like the 2-legged ones. And it's very heartbreaking when they go. So my condolences to George. Anyways, we've got a full show. So here is Vegas by George Hendrickson, followed by the lead-in to Rich Hall's interview, Fear No Evil, from his band Follow No One.
Japan, there's thousands of faces. Now smile all the day when you think you're alone. Count all the faces and you count on your own.
Hi, this is Rich with Follow No One. You're listening to me on the Douglas Coleman Show, and here's our single, Fear No Evil.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Rich Hall. Hey, Rich, how are you?
Good, Doug. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, You are a singer-songwriter, and how long you been doing that?
Well, wow, it's been a long time. Actually, I'd say over 20 years. Make me look old, but, you know, that's it.
All right. Tell us a little about your background. How'd you get started? Where'd you grow up? What were you listening to as a kid? All that kind of stuff.
Well, back when I was back in my younger days, my mother, she was kind of like, I guess you could say, one of those stage moms, but she really wanted me to get active in arts and pushed me, and I'm thankfully so, to audition for a musical. And when I was 9 years old, I played Tom Sawyer.
Oh.
And that kind of got me into music and started playing piano. And I ended up getting in my first rock band when I was 13, playing keyboards. Just thought I was, all that and everything. And, I've been doing it off and on ever since. But full time now, probably the last 4 years with this project, Follow No One, that I'm involved in.
Okay, so this isn't your first band then?
No, sir. No, it's not. I've been active in music, like I said, off and on, my whole life. So I think I recorded my first studio album when I was 16, and then followed up with another one a couple years later. And the music scene at that time, we're talking 1991, 92, that range. That's kind of when Seattle blessed us with grunge, and the whole music scene kind of changed in rock and everything. And I ended up going in the Army, and did that, and after that was the responsible type of person, and was actually in the corporate world for quite a while, for about 10 years. And after, I just got burnt out with that. Some things happened in my life that changed, and I ended up back where I should have been all along, and that's in music, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Yeah, I kind of did the same thing. I'm also a musician. I started out at about 18, and then took the other road and did corporate, and then came back to it 20 years later. So meanwhile, 20 years later, the entire industry has been flipped upside down. And it's,
it's not recognizable.
No, it's not.
Still a lot of fun. That hasn't changed.
So what do you think of it? What do you think of the new music industry? Do it yourself, internet, record at home on software.
I think there's some, just like anything else, Ralph Waldo Emerson, I think, said, with all good, there's bad, and with all bad, there's good. Music industry's changed in the way, like you just mentioned, in that, anybody can do it now, and anybody can put music out. And that's, from a musician standpoint, that's fantastic, because I think the more people involved in the music, the better. Now, the negative part of that is also the supply of music now is just overwhelming. I think there's something like 40,000 new songs released on Spotify every day. So, even to get to the point where I'm at right now, talking to you, for example, it takes some doing. And with people recording in just every way, shape, and form you can think of, I think that technology is kind of doing what in the music industry what it's done in others, and there's services now for musicians to master their track. Well, I like to have an engineer do that. Someone that's had training. Does it cost a little bit more money? Yes, but the end product is a lot better for the fans. And I think that parity you're seeing in the music industry now, where you're not getting that level of professionalism in all the music, I think that's detracting a little bit. But it's also making it, it's also making it open for more people to be involved. So that's kind of my take on it.
You're right, and I agree. The only thing that bothers me, being that I have a show and that we get lots of submissions for people who want their songs played on the show, is that there isn't a gatekeeper anymore. And I get stuff that I just shake my head going, God, who told this person they could sing? Who told this person that they could play guitar? You know what I mean? Now, I get a lot of great stuff too, and I'm happy with that. But when it, costs almost nothing to just get some software and a microphone and to do it at home, right, everybody thinks they're the next Beatles, or Mariah Carey or whoever. And I don't know, that's the downside for me of the technology. Like you said, anyone can do it. That's both good and bad.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to kill that, I guess, creative spirit that's out there, and don't tell someone they can't be the Beatles or Mariah, because we won't get another one. But that being said, and I agree with you to a point, it's like the Wild West, and in a lot of ways it makes things kind of fun. But if for those of us that are doing it for a living and rely on it for income, and and so on. I think the overall product, if you want to call music a product, which it is,
sure it is.
I think the overall product has suffered when you start taking professionals out of the loop, like the engineers and of all kinds, mix engineers, mastering, and et cetera. And somebody tells you, well, you don't need them. You can just do this with your software. Yeah, you can do it. You can drive a car with a blindfold on too. That doesn't make it a good idea.
Well, there's no quality assurance anymore. That's back in the day when you really had to have a professional studio to make a half decent demo. Even it was just out of reach for most people. I mean, I think maybe I'm a little bit older than you. How old are you now? If I can
I'm
ask?
44.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're like 14 years apart. But when I was doing it, there really were not any studios that rented time to the public. I mean, there were a couple, but they were really expensive, and you just didn't have that kind of money back.
Well,
so,
you do if you save, Doug. That's what I was in high school, man. I recorded my first demo in Kansas City. I guess I was 16, maybe. I'd saved my money for a year to go out and do it that summer.
Well, okay, and, yeah, good for you.
And me and another guy and got in a car and drove from St. Louis and went to Kansas City, and I have family. Kansas City has some family references there, so I had somebody to stay with, and that. But no, we paid. My mom and dad didn't fork a dime for it, and Dad was kind of like one of those people. You do what you could do anything you want to, but here's the caveat: you're also going to have to pay for it too. That's part of the reason I went into the military. Get some college money and some stuff like that. And
well, I'm just trying to think, because when I was in New York City, this would have been 1980.
Right.
And I don't remember any studios saying, we'll rent time for you to make your demo. I just don't remember anything like that. I hooked up with a band, and lucky for me, one of my bandmates had a friend who had an 8-track, 2-inch reel-to-reel studio in the basement of his house.
Right.
And we just made demos there, and that was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that or gone into a studio. That kind of stuff, it just didn't exist. And
prior to that, that's kind of what we were doing too, Doug, because where I lived, there weren't any studios either. That's why we traveled where we did. We probably could have recorded in St. Louis, but they didn't find me. I had to find them. And then, especially when you walk into a place and you're a couple kids, basically, I guess, from the engineer standpoint, it's just kind of, we had to sit down and show that we deserved to be there, I guess you could say.
Right.
And then after just a little bit working with the guy, he's like, okay, I dig it, guys. So you can pass, come on into the studio, whatever,
Well,
but then actually that first engineer I ever worked with, though, I mean, he was one of the most inspirational people for me in my life, even though I spent a very short period of time with him. Because we got lucky. They were getting ready to replace their main console in their studio. And he goes, guys, you just happen to show up at a good time or a bad time. He goes, I got to replace this console. And he said, what I'll do is I'll give you guys some extra studio time if you will help me test it and get it incorporated in the studio. And we're like, right on,
Oh, that's nice, yeah.
I got to see how a studio really worked from inside. Then I also knew, what it really took to get a professional recording. But you said something about gatekeepers earlier, and I'll let you say something, and I'm going to jump back to that just a moment.
Well, that's exactly it, because when you went to that studio, you kind of auditioned for that engineer, like you just said. He would have been the gatekeeper. If you guys came in and just sucked, he probably would have said, you know what, I got to tell you, maybe this isn't the way you should be going with your life. And then he might have said something to you, but that's all gone.
He might have, I don't know. That's a good. He did have some. He did have some tips, while we were recording and whatnot, and introduced. He had what was it? An old Wurlitzer organ in there, and he said, your song needs this, and he goes, this thing's older than both of you put together. He goes, but let's plug it in, and man, that thing fired up, and I still remember that organ sound to this day, and it was just wow. I just felt, I don't know, man, when you're when you're younger and you're doing it, and it's mostly, for fun, even though I've always been competitive, that's one thing. When you're doing it and you're sitting waiting for your next single to drop and going, okay, we've put a mountain of money and time in this. Let's see what's going to happen with it. There's a little bit more pressure on you to do that way. But, you said something about gatekeepers earlier. They may not exist in the internet and in that world, but I can tell you this, it is very, very, very competitive in radio now, much more so than it's ever been. We have difficulty getting our songs played on major FM terrestrial stations, and quite honestly, so do even the large name artists do too.
Oh,
it's very
absolutely.
difficult to get radio play because it's such a competitive business now. Because I think the radio stations have forgotten, or haven't forgotten, but they don't know how to make money in this new economy.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I mean, this show is on 13 FM stations across the country, and most of the people that listen to this show are listening to it online. I think FM radio is going to be gone in 10 years. Do you know in Norway, they already got rid of FM? There's no more FM in Norway.
Actually, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just think when you think about the way people listen to music now, it's all through their phone. That's 99% of everybody, except for the music aficionados who still buy vinyl and might sit down in a room with a turntable and 2 speakers. But the majority of people are listening to music on their phone while they're driving, while they're on a bus, while they're walking, at work, whatever. I see these people, and I'm sure you've seen them too. They're connected to that damn thing 24/7. They're pushing.
Yeah, I've got kids. Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm talking about. So it's like FM radio really is a dinosaur technology these days.
Well, it is, and I guess from perception standpoint, but to me, I don't know. Maybe I've still got that old school, I guess, viewpoint. If you gave me the choice, once I get off the air here with you, 5,000 new Spotify streams, or I just did an interview with Douglas Coleman on the radio. The interview for me is more gazillion times more exciting than the way music's put out. Just on Spotify, it's just so impersonal.
Well, that's true.
One of the things about music now too, is it's impersonal, and I thought that's one thing that radio has that no one else has, is you have that person on the air that people actually enjoy listening to their favorite radio hosts as much as they do their bands or more sometimes, and it makes it personal. And you don't have that on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify, and Pandora, and whatnot. So I don't know. I think there's hope. I think they just got to find a way to reach the right people. I hope what you're saying is wrong, but I'm afraid you're right.
Well, here's the problem. If somebody is driving in the car and they've got their FM radio going, and they hear my show and they hear your song,
right,
which we're going to play, and they go, wow, I really like that. It's not quite as easy, especially for the younger generations who, if they were listening to it on an online station, could just click the link. And there you are, and there's your website, and there's your Spotify, and they can buy your song just like that. If you're listening to an old...
It takes some effort, and that's what people... I've noticed that through social media marketing, Douglas, that if there's more than one or two or three, if there's more than one step involved, 2 or 3, or God forbid 4, for someone to interact with you, you're going to lose them.
Exactly.
Because they're on to something else so fast.
Yeah.
And I think it's that's not just our kids, that's society. Our attention span is about, just look at the way news is reported now and those types of things. It's just not it's everything. We have attention spans like gnats in general. And I think it's kind of sad, really.
Well, it's very true. But the point being is that internet is a much more viable medium for somebody who's trying to sell their music than getting it on FM, because let's face it, people are going to listen to, if anybody's listening to FM, and I really don't know because I can't get accurate stats. If I go to the stations that are playing my show, they'll say, oh, well, we have a listening audience of, 2 million, 3 million people. Yeah, but how many are actually tuned in?
Yeah, at one time.
Yeah, they may reach that many people. But, that's like me saying if I start up a brand new website and I put it out, and I say, I'm reaching the entire world with my website. Meanwhile, nobody's hitting on it. Well, it's
not in China.
Yeah, not anywhere.
But I'm sorry.
Not anywhere.
Yeah, I get it.
Because it's up to getting the people to come and listen. And I don't think FM has got that kind of... It doesn't have that sort of mojo anymore. It used to be. FM used to be all-powerful. That used to be it, okay?
Sure.
Yeah, it looks good on the paper. It looks good on the website. We're on 13 FM stations. But I get much more response with comments, with interaction on the online sites that I'm on. Far more.
Well, that's because maybe it's because you notice it. Because if I'm driving my car listening to you right now and really digging what you're saying and digging the show, I can't say, hey, man, hey, this is awesome. I have no way. I can do it instantaneously if I'm on the internet. I think that's what you're going towards earlier.
Yeah.
But the good thing about that is we have fans all over the world, and there's no way somebody in Indonesia, for example, is going to hear a radio interview like this unless they can access it on the internet, and they can. So,
right.
I mean, that's one of the positives and pluses to it is it allows us to reach people. This is just odd to me, but like, for example, one of the streaming platforms is SoundCloud. I look at my reports every week. Our biggest performing city last week was Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. And I'm like, okay, I didn't even know that they allowed the internet, first of all, there. But awesome. I'm glad they have found us. How did they? And I still don't know. But God bless them, everyone.
Now, the downside to the internet and to the flooded market and the way people listen to music. See, when we were talking about FM back in the old days, you heard a song you liked on FM, you remembered the artist's name, and then you got in your car and headed down to the record store. And there's,
sure.
There's his record. Okay, I'll buy it. Okay, the artist made money. Now, it's very, very difficult to make money off of recorded music unless you're getting millions of hits.
You're not telling me anything I don't know.
Right? Okay, so I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah, and people think that those streaming platforms do not pay you hardly anything.
They don't pay. They don't.
No,
a penny a stream.
Yep, and some are less than that even.
Yeah.
Actually, it's pretty sorry.
Well, and it's not even because 90% of the money goes to about 2% of the artists. That's about how it works. And the rest of it, I can tell you that Justin Bieber does not get a penny a stream. He gets a lot more than that.
Well, he
Spotify.
probably does because he has a record company that
basically has
enough weight behind him that they can kind of put some pressure on these streaming platforms and say, you know what?
Yeah, we're not going to take
this
a penny.
artist get paid this, or you're not going to have access to their material.
Right, exactly. So, in one sense, the playing field's been leveled, but in another sense, no, it really hasn't. And it also is forcing artists to look for other ways to make a living because you're not going to make a living selling records anymore.
No. And even sadder, I see this all the time. You see all kinds of artists, and we do that every now and then, not so as much as others, but giving their music away for free.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just to get people, just to get someone to listen to you. Hey, here's our song for free. That's a losing strategy in the long run. It sure is.
You know what the irony is, though, that now that when musicians go and tour, people actually buy the CDs at the concert.
Yep.
Like they'll have them out front with the T-shirts and the posters, and people will pick them up there. But they wouldn't think to buy the CD off of Amazon, beforehand. But once they're there, they go, "Oh, I'll get the CD."
Someone told me something speaks exactly what you're saying. His dad was a jazz artist, and he had his CDs for sale everywhere, Best Buy, you name it. He said he sold more CDs at his shows than he ever did at Best Buy and all the other merchants that he, sent his music to.
No, I believe it. Absolutely. So your band is called Follow No One, and the other half of the band is your guitarist, Pedro Murino Almeida. Tell us a little about Pedro.
Pedro is actually, he's my second half, I guess. He's over in Lisbon, Portugal, and Pedro's just a phenomenal guitar player. He studied music. He's classically trained in music. He studied at UK Sheffield and musical composition, and he's got a really, really broad range of musical background in that regards. And just from the standpoint of a rock guitarist, he's without a doubt the best I've ever worked with, and I think pound for pound one of the top ones on the planet today. And I don't say that. I've worked with a ton. I've never even thought of saying that about anyone, but Pedro deserves it.
How did you meet him?
Well, I was actually in Kansas City at the time. I talked about that earlier. That's where I always seem to go back to musically. I don't know why. I think artists do have that place that they like the best, that makes them feel more homey when they're working. And Kansas City's that place for me. But I was working on a studio album. It was going to be a solo project. And during the middle of the sessions, the engineer took off with the music. I mean, he left, and I ended up getting in a scrum with the studio. And at the same time this was all going on, Pedro had found me on a website on the internet and had heard me sing and said, "Man, I dig your voice." He goes, this is an odd request, but I've written a song and I would like someone to put the words and vocals to it. And Pedro's a fantastic singer himself. He just wanted to work with somebody else, try a collaboration. I guess he hadn't really tried one before, and I hadn't either. So we just went ahead and worked on our first single, and it was Guardian Angel. And after that was completed, we were just going to try to pitch it for sync to television or film. But we went ahead and released it anyway to the general public and had positive enough feedback. We've been doing it ever since. That was 2016, and we're still rocking.
Now, you won a Josie Award. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yes, sir. It was all right. The JMAs are the largest independent music awards in the world, and we were nominated for Best Rock Act, Best Rock Song, and Entertainer of the Year. And we were fortunate enough to walk away with Best Rock Act for 2019 against, I think, like 14 other nominees. Pretty, and some darn good artists in their own right. And that was great. Pretty amazing to win that.
How long have you been with Pedro?
Pedro and I have been going, I guess it's been right around 3 years now.
3 years, okay. All right, well, congratulations on the Josie. That's exciting. We do have to wrap this up at this point, Rich. Unfortunately, our time has just flown by. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Nice chatting with you. Best of luck.
Nice speaking to you as well, Doug. Pleasure.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Since the dawn of man, storytelling has held the power to rewrite history and shape our future. That power has too often been used to manipulate us and prey on our sons and daughters with impunity. Teenagers, lured by the siren's call of Hollywood dreams, are pitted against each other and told, if you won't do it, there's 1,000 more arriving tomorrow who will. The time has come to end this race to the bottom. Secrecy and silence no longer need to be the price for success. Technology, laws, and culture have culminated in a moment of opportunity where disruption is not just possible, but inevitable. Gratwick was established to be a turnkey studio capable of supporting local artists without luring them away. To remain accountable at all times, it will be owned and operated by the audience and the artists. Own a piece of a new, transparent Hollywood where you hold influence over what gets funded, who gets cast, and what charities we support. Visit Gratwick Productions on StartEngine.com today and take ownership over who has the power to entertain you.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you, bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
The Douglas Coleman Show is now offering a complete radio promotional package for music artists. Your track will air 28 times a week for 1 month over all of our online and terrestrial platforms, as well as permanently archive on Spreaker, iTunes, and many other sites. Your profile will also be featured in our featured music artists page on our website. With this package, you will also get a 15-minute interview on our show to promote your latest single, EP, LP, or upcoming gig. Similar packages like this can run hundreds of dollars and often are subscription-based. Our package has a one-time fee of just $49.99. Please go to douglascolemanmusic.com/CRPP. That's douglascolemanmusic.com/CRPP for complete details. Let's work together to get your music heard.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Suzanne Kirlew, a.k.a. Curly Sue. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Hi.
Hi, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. You are an author of a cookbook, a TV presenter, and a keynote speaker. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Why don't we just do one at a time?
Yes.
Have you been an author for a long time, or is this your first venture into it?
No, this is my 4th book. However, my first book was published in 2012, and then I had a couple of other books, well, 2 other books, and this is the 4th book. So this one is a different publisher to the other ones. So this is kind of, for me, my first real published book. Even though the others were published, this is kind of more of a published book for me because it's a bigger publisher than before.
Okay, were your other books, did you self-publish or just smaller publisher?
Smaller public, well, both. The first book was a smaller publisher, and then the other 2 books I self-published. You can do them on Amazon CreateSpace. I did it that way.
Right, okay. So your new book is called Cooking with Kids.
Yes.
And I assume you're not cooking kids, but cooking with kids.
Yes. It's basically a book for parents so they can cook things that their children would like, but also if they want their children to cook along with them, they're simple enough for the children to take part in the cooking activity.
Oh, I see. Okay. You are also a vegan, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, now did you start out in life as a vegan, or was this something you picked up later in your life?
I did not start out as a vegan. I became a vegetarian when I was 18, and then I became a vegan 6 years ago.
Okay, just so people are clear, what is the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan?
Right. A vegan is somebody who eats no meat, fish, dairy, eggs, or honey. A vegetarian is somebody who eats no meat and no fish. Now, where the confusion comes in, there's some people who call themselves a vegetarian, but they do eat fish. Those people are confused because they're not vegetarian.
And then you've also got a term on here, which I've never heard before, called flexitarian. What is a flexitarian?
A flexitarian is somebody who is not a vegan, but they have an interest in vegan food, and they will, if there's a vegan option wherever they go, they will prefer that. So they're kind of like a meat avoider is another term for it. So they kind of dip in and out of being, so some people call it vegan-ish. So they're not fully vegan, but they do have a lot of vegan meals.
Okay. Why did you decide to become a vegetarian?
I became a vegetarian, first of all, because my background is I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and a lot of Seventh-day Adventists are vegetarian because the church encourages you to eat healthy and, you know, eat less meat and so forth. So that influence came from my church. But then I decided to become a vegan because I was reading a book called The China Study by T. Colin Campbell, because I thought what I was trying to achieve by being a vegetarian was the same as, you know, being a vegan. But when I read the China Study, the statistics show that if you are a meat eater, the amount of saturated fat you consume is, I can't remember the exact figure, something like 70-something%. And it's also the exact same figure if you're vegetarian, but if you're vegan, that figure drops to 30-something%. So I thought, oh, I didn't realize. And the book also talks about the types of diseases that can be carried through meat and so forth. So I decided to make the switch from vegetarian to vegan.
Okay, so it was pretty much health-based reasons rather than political.
Yes.
Because there are people who are vegan and vegetarian who do it for political reasons, and I'm none of the above. I'm not vegan, I'm not vegetarian. Although I don't eat a lot of red meat, so I suppose I'm on the path somewhat.
But, you're on your way.
Yeah, I probably eat red meat twice a month.
Okay.
But I do like my chicken and my turkey and my fish and seafood and all of that. But there are people that, like I said, that had very politically motivated intentions for being vegan and vegetarian. And I tend not to appreciate that as much as just somebody who does it because they want to eat better and be healthy. How do you feel politically about the vegan and vegetarian, political track, I suppose?
Well, I have two schools of thought. I understand where they're coming from, and I'm not a keen advocate of people harming animals. However, I think the way in which you put your viewpoint across with regards not harming animals is important, because there are some vegans who are animal lovers and they will do anything for animals, but they're also quite friendly in how they bring that point across. But then there's also another group who are the same, animal lovers, but they have a very angry approach to their viewpoint, which is the bit that I don't like. So for me, I would say I'm a happy vegan. And also, I think at the end of the day, everybody has choice. So it's up to them what they choose to do. I'm happy to present them with the facts, and what they choose to do afterwards is their choice. I don't condemn anyone for making whichever choices they have. It's up to them.
One of the more famous vegetarians out there is Paul McCartney. And
oh, yes.
I saw a funny picture that was taken a year or two ago, and he's standing at a barbecue, And he's cooking all of this presumably tofu substitute things for meat, but he was grilling sausages, chicken, burgers, and I just had to laugh because I never quite got the concept of, if you decide you're going to be a vegetarian, why do you have to have food that resembles meat products? Why can't you just do something like a stir fry with tofu and vegetables? You know, what is the necessity about having all the food that looks like meat product?
Well, not everything you eat looks like what it is what the name is. For example, if you have fish fingers, they're not real fingers.
Okay.
The name.
True. Yeah.
So why have fish that resembles fingers when you don't want to eat fingers? It's just a way of describing it in a way in which people understand the flavors and the approach to the meal, I would say. So at the end of the day, it's a choice. And some people, they want to become vegan, but they find it difficult to give up the foods that they've known and loved for years. So if they can find something that's similar to that, it makes the transition easier for them.
Right. I always thought he was vegan, but then he clarified that at an interview and he said, no, he's a vegetarian because he eats cheese. Yeah. I thought that was interesting. But I think like you, most people who are vegan or vegetarian did not start out that way. And they had some kind of an epiphany and became that way for one reason or another. You know, which is fine. I think, like I said, I agree with you. I think people have a choice. They can eat what they want. It's when it comes nasty political that I don't like it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about your TV show. What do you do on your TV show?
I've done 2 different TV shows. I did a TV show on 3ABN TV, which is an American channel, and that's called Curly Sue's Kitchen. And it's basically different vegan recipes that are taken from some of my earlier books. And then I had another TV show called Curly Sue's Global Kitchen, where I visit different countries, look at where different fresh foods come from, and then I come back to the UK and cook a replica of that dish back here in the UK. Okay,
so it's a cooking show?
Yes.
All right.
But showing how easy it is to get fresh fruit, because, for example, fresh food, because a lot of people, if they're going to have coconut milk, they think, right, let me go and get a can of coconut milk or the powdered stuff and add water. But in one of my programs, I show you actually how incredibly easy it is to make fresh coconut milk yourself. It's not that difficult at all to have fresh ingredients for your dish and to use, trying to use less processed food to make it much more healthier and balanced diet.
Well, that I agree with. I mean, I have been baking my own bread for months now, and I have not bought a store-bought loaf of bread. And I'll tell you, I couldn't go back. There's no way I could go back to it because it just tastes so much better. And never mind, the house smells wonderful. It smells like a bakery all the time. You've also been a keynote speaker, and you've traveled to the USA, Singapore, Dubai, Norway. What do you talk about? Well, first of all, whom do you talk about? Whom do you talk to?
I speak to a number of different audiences. Sometimes it's corporate groups of people. Sometimes it can be schools, colleges. It can be all sorts of different audiences. It could be a church. And I speak on a number of different topics. I talk about vegan cooking made easy. So if somebody wants to become a vegan and they don't know where to start, how they can do that. Also do another one called Healthy Eating Made Easy, where again a lot of people say to me, I want to start eating healthy, but I just don't know where to begin. So I go through a simple process that they can go through to start changing their diet slowly, because I think sometimes people think, right, I'm just going to do it all from today, and a drastic change is difficult because it's not usually sustainable. But to make it sustainable, it's showing them how to make it gradual. I also do a couple of other ones. I do one called New Start, which is an acronym for nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, and trust in God. So it's giving people the different aspects of healthy living and kind of breaking down each one as to how it can apply to their life without it being too complicated. So I speak on a number of different topics.
Give us an example of what you would recommend to somebody who wanted to start. What would be the easy recipe you'd recommend for them to start with?
For healthy eating or for vegan? If they want to start becoming a vegan?
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah. If they want to start becoming a vegan, what I usually say to them is start off with one type of meal per week. So if you're going to become a vegan, start making breakfast, for example. If you want to start with breakfast, finding vegan meals for breakfast. So you could do it, first of all, 1 or 2 meals a week are vegan breakfast, and then the next week you could do 3 or 4 until you've got all of the breakfasts that are vegan, and then gradually move forward from there. So you do breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then your snacks and so forth. And then you can just keep a folder of the favorite recipes that you've acquired when you've made the switch from whatever you were eating to the vegan diet.
Okay.
So I say do it slowly and find other people who are vegan and share recipes with them, and also join like a Facebook group, Instagram, Twitter, because I'm on all of those, and find recipes and so forth, because that will help you out a lot.
Okay, give us an example menu of something that one could do for starting a vegan breakfast.
A vegan breakfast can be, you can get really nice vegan sausages. So you can have sausages on toast with ketchup if you want a really simple one, or you can have granola. So in my book there's a granola recipe, and that's quite easy to make. And you can have the granola either with a plant-based milk, or you can actually have it with just some fresh orange juice. You can pour it on it and have that. That's really good. You can also take the granola and put it in a small Ziploc bag and have that as a snack, kind of like trail mix, I think you call it in the US.
Yes.
And so for breakfast, things like that. You could also have baked fruit, so baked berries, for example. So you could bake some berries in the oven and have that as part of your breakfast as well. And there's lots of good cereals on the market as well. Also, Heinz baked beans, those kind of beans you can have for breakfast with. There are some kind of scrambled tofu. You can have things like that, or if you don't want that, you can have hash browns and things like that as well. So there's lots of choices. What is in the vegan sausage? The vegan sausages have, it varies. Some of them have soya in it, and then others will have mushroom, breadcrumbs, seasoning, things like that inside. So it varies from one manufacturer to the other. What do they use for the skin? It's not the same as a regular sausage, so it doesn't usually necessarily have a skin like that. How they make the skin, I honestly don't know. Okay, I guess I've never really seen one, so I'm trying to picture what it looks like. Yeah, because most major supermarkets these days have them. So if you kind of made a conscious choice to kind of look for it, you'd think, oh yeah, I've seen those, but you probably didn't realize they were vegan, because there's lots of different brands. There's one of the famous brands in the US is Morningstar. They do quite a lot of vegan foods as well. Well, I heard that McDonald's in Canada is trying out tofu burgers as a sort of test and seeing if the market takes off with that. And, I think that's fine. I think that they should offer the choice. Let people have real burgers or let people have tofu burgers. I think that's fine, because they've been doing that in other countries for years. I think in India, the McDonald's, because they don't eat beef at all, the burgers there are either chicken or they're tofu burgers, and
that's just what they have. So, why not? I think that's fine. So what is your website?
My website is Kirlew Sue's Kitchen, Kirlew spelled Kirly, Kirlew, Sue, Sues, kirlewsueskitchen.co.uk.
And how is your book, Cooking with Kids? How is that doing? Is it selling well?
It's going good, yes. It's going good. It's only just come out, so I have the book launch next month. So there's press and so forth coming to it. So yeah, that's quite an exciting event. I'm really looking forward to it.
Have you done a book signing?
I will do at the book launch.
Okay, because those are a lot of fun. And you get to meet a lot of interesting people. Sitting from 2 to 4 at Borders at your desk, but you do get a lot of interesting people coming up and saying hi. We got to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on. This was informative and interesting. Best of luck with the book. I hope it does well. And tell us your website one more time, please.
Kirlew Sue's Kitchen, KIRLYSUES, kirlewsueskitchen.co.uk. And thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Rich Hall and Suzanne Kirlew. Also, thank you to George Hendrickson for his music. This is Douglas Coleman saying I'll see you later.
Tell you, you've got to turn